What up, motherfuckers? It's your boy, the Hater. We've done it, basically. A video every day until Wrestlemania. You know, with the upload of this video, that definitely fulfills my promise. Now, that doesn't mean that we're done here at the Hater. As a matter of fact, motherfucks, subscribe today because this next year will be the greatest one yet. And then the year after that will be the greatest one yet. Every year will be the greatest one yet. You understand me? Because around here we move only in one direction, and that is up. So if you haven't subscribed, take a moment to subscribe right now and do as you're fucking told, motherfuckers. Now let's get to the show, right? We're going to do WrestleMania Review Night 1, right? Now, after WrestleMania Review Night 2, I probably won't be uploading videos as often, but I think it's going to be more often than usual anyways because, you know, like I'm used to it now, so what are you going to do, right? Let's start out. First of all, I just want to say a couple of things, you know? I expected this show to be complete garbage, so let's keep that in mind, okay? I guess I'll give my assessment at the end of this review. What the fuck is this loud car? Fucking douchebag motherfucker. So first up we have Bobby Lashley with MVP versus Drew McIntyre. Now this match was mostly pretty great. You know, I really enjoyed this match. Both wrestlers did moves that they don't typically do. So it felt like a bigger deal than if they had this match on Raw or something like that. But that being said, they didn't do anything like amazing either. You know what I mean? And there was a part, I will say this, motherfucks. There was a part where for some reason, Drew McIntyre got distracted by MVP. You know, I don't even know what MVP did. They didn't show it on camera. But Drew McIntyre was there. He's getting ready for the Claymore. MVP says something. He turns around to look at him. And then he goes and runs to do the Claymore and misses. Lashley snaps on the Hurt Lock, and that's the end of that, motherfucks. Lashley wins semi-clean. Now, because Lashley won semi-clean, would it really be much more problematic if Lashley just won clean? You know what I mean? If he just won clean, if he just snapped on the Hurt Lock, like if he just dodged the Claymore without MVP interfering, and he won like that, would that be so much worse? You know, like it wouldn't be worse. It would be much better. You know, it would make Lashley look legit. The fact that it happened that way, and the fact that this match was first, really pissed me off because, like, yo, when is Lashley gonna really get his due? You know what I mean? Like, okay, he's not even on night 2 of WrestleMania, obviously the more important night, but he's not even in the main event of this WrestleMania, which is not even like a real main event, you know? It really is a little disheartening, if you ask me, right? But it is what it is. At least he's on WrestleMania winning the world title, you know, like defending his world title. So that's a pretty big deal. Overall, the match was good. I give it a solid 3.5 out of 5. Like, it wasn't a bad match at all. Then we had Natalya and Tamina beating a bunch of jobbers in order to qualify for the tag team match tonight, right? Now here's the problem with this match. It sucked, motherfuckers. It sucked. First of all, every tag team is like a makeshift tag team. There isn't like one tag team in the women's division that is a real tag team, you know? You had the Iconics, and now it's just a bunch of broads who are like they're by themselves, and they're forming tag teams, like alliances of convenience. You could argue that the Riot Squad is kind of like that, but they're also an alliance of convenience if you really think about it, because Liv Morgan and what's her face, Ruby Riott, split up, and then they had a feud for some reason, and now they're back together again, you know? So it's like they're back together again because the tag titles exist, you know? So in my opinion, the winners should have been either Naomi and Lana, just because like Lana versus Nia Jax has been like a theme this entire year, or it could have been fucking not Riot Squad, that's for sure, motherfucks, you know what I'm saying? And not that team that actually won, Natalya and Tamina. But Mandy Rose and Dana Brooke, who by the way looked great. You know what I'm saying? I love their outfits. They looked fantastic. They looked exactly the same. They both look good. That's good. Good things like that should be on TV more often. But Natalya and Tamina winning. I will say that the ending of the match was pretty cool. Like they hit the heart attack, and then Tamina hit the Superfly splash, and it was like a moment, like an ode to their fathers, basically, right? Which was like, all right, cool. You know what I mean? Like, if you're not gonna do anything else with this match, you might as well do this, right? Because this match felt like a match that could have been on Raw. You know what I mean? Or SmackDown. And it should, in my opinion, it should have been on Raw and SmackDown. That's what I think. And the reason why I think that is because there were a number of wrestlers that I'm not saying they deserve a spot. Like I can't say Nakamura deserves a spot, right, on the card. But, like, why not have Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler be on the card and wrestle, like, Rey Mysterio and Dominic? You know what I mean? That feels like a WrestleMania match. Like, especially if Dominic and Rey Mysterio win, that's a legitimate WrestleMania moment. Like, when Mysterio goes to the Hall of Fame, they will play that moment. You know, when Dominic goes to the Hall of Fame, if he does, they would play that moment. So I find it very odd, motherfucks, that they didn't like pull the trigger on this yet, especially because it's WrestleMania, you know? Like, everybody wants to see that, I would think, right? You would want to see Rey Mysterio and Dominic become tag team champions, father and son. I believe the first ever father and son, unless Vince and Shane did it once or some shit like that, right? That'd be good. Now, the only thing about that, though, is like, in this equation is also Rey Mysterio, who just deserves a WrestleMania spot because, number one, he's a legend, and two, he's better than everyone else in this card, you know? He's still better than everyone else. He, like, you know, I say Lashley's great and Drew McIntyre is great. Rey Mysterio is better than both of them combined. I'd rather see Rey Mysterio versus Juventud Guerrera than see Lashley versus Drew. You know what I mean? Rey Mysterio deserves a shot, and it's fucking horseshit that he didn't get one, you know? And it's even worse considering that instead of Rey Mysterio, we have to see this women's tag team turmoil match, which is like unnecessarily long, you know what I mean? One of the longer matches of the night, motherfucks. Now let me have my coffee up in this bitch. Good espresso. Next up, we have Cesar versus Rollins. In this year's, well, in one of this year's inconsequential matches, right? This didn't feel like a big deal. You know, they presented it as Seth Rollins basically like has no faith that Cesaro can be in WrestleMania. And they presented this when Cesaro ultimately won after doing the swing and neutralizer. Like, they presented it as if this was like the career achievement. You know, they really made this guy look like he's a guy who's never done anything important. You know, he is a US champion, and this is a big win, of course. But the real thing here is like they're ignoring the Andre the Giant Battle Royal, like the first one, right? That actually mattered, you know? The first two maybe mattered. And he won. He became a star after that. You know what I mean? And that was a WrestleMania moment. That was a legitimate, that was one of the highlights of that WrestleMania. And that was what many consider to be a great WrestleMania, you know? So, what I'm saying here, motherfucks, is exactly that. I'm saying that Cesaro has had his moment, so to like retcon this as his moment is disrespectful to the Andre the Giant Battle Royal and to Cesaro as well. You know, it's like when Big Show beat Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania, and it was presented as if this was Big Show's like moment. You know, Big Show's like, his career is full of WrestleMania moments. Yeah, he didn't win a lot at WrestleMania. He was always on the losing side, but that's by nature of his character. You know, like, but he wrestled Floyd Mayweather. You know, he wrestled Aki Bono in a sumo match. He was been in several WrestleMania main events. You know, like real ones and then like bullshit ones for like the SmackDown World Title. You know, this like Big Show's like a legend. So to present him beating Cody Rhodes as some sort of a career achievement was ridiculous. You know, it's like, dude, he beats people like Cody Rhodes every day. So it is what it is. I didn't like the fact that this match was even on WrestleMania, to be honest. You know, I'm happy for Cesaro, but I'm not happy for Cesaro actually because there's nothing to be happy about. It's like he just won another match. A big fucking deal, right? Who cares? Next up, we had AJ Styles and Hamas versus The New Day. And for what this match was fantastic, right? The whole story of the match was when will AJ hot tag Hamas in and what will happen then. So AJ Styles is getting his ass beat this whole time. But eventually, like a situation like appears basically where AJ Styles is like kind of sitting on his ass and Xavier Woods is on the top rope, right? But AJ Styles basically has like come to, so he's not going to just lay there and take a move, right? And then he looks back at Hamas and like smiles like deviously, and Xavier's like, no, don't do it, right? So AJ Styles jumps and like flagrantly hot tags Hamas in. Hamas comes in, Kofi and Xavier have this look on their eyes like, what the fuck are we going to do to this guy, right? And then the rest of the match goes exactly like that. It's basically Hamas has an answer for everything that like the New Day tries to do. They try to do a move, he just stops them, you know? He's just such a beast that he just stops them. Now, that's cool and everything, you know? I understand that you want to present Hamas the way they are presenting him. And I'm all for it, by the way, right? But, and Hamas is a big guy, so he does deserve it. Like, you know what I'm saying? It makes sense. But if Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods can, let's say, overwhelm someone like The Big Show in a 2-on-1, or Braun Strowman, they really should have no problem doing the same to Hamas, because even though Hamas is taller, like, he's not nearly as beefy as Braun Strowman, or not nearly as substantial in size as Big Show, or like Mark Henry, right? Like, I think all three of these guys would beat up Hamas. But Hamas is presented as if he's like Great Khali times 19. Lest we forget, Great Khali was getting his ass kicked by Cucky Rhodes. You know? So I don't really like the way that like this monster push is starting, if it's gonna end, and it will, in a Great Khali-esque like jobber role, where he's out there just getting his ass beat by Finley, you know what I mean? So But for what it was well done. Basically, the match ends when Hamas just like picks up Kofi Kingston in the like what was supposed to be a Punjabi plunge, I think, but basically it's like a spine buster. It's like the same move that Angelo Dawkins does, but it's obviously better because Hamas is like 9 feet tall, so it looks better. So he hits that on Kucky Kingston, and then he pins him with 1 foot. I feel like that, like it's just like the Great Khali. I feel like these guys, because they're so big, they have a problem like bending down and like doing, things like pinfall. So he just put his foot on him, and AJ was like 1 foot, Omos. And at some point, AJ Styles also did like a phenomenal forearm, like he springboarded onto Omos' shoulders, got some extra distance, and hit like the forearm, right? Which was pretty cool. It was a pretty cool way to like reintegrate AJ Styles into the match. I think that's how he got rid of Xavier Woods. So there you have it. I mean, the match wasn't really like great, but it was what everyone would expect. So, I enjoyed it. Was it a WrestleMania worthy match? Absolutely not. This could have been on Raw. As a matter of fact, it probably will be on Raw tonight. Tomorrow. Sorry, my bad, motherfucks. Next up, we had Braun Strowman versus Shane McMahon. This match actually was pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I really enjoyed this match. I thought I would hate it, but it was pretty nice. Jackson Riker and Elias came in and hit Braun Strowman in the knee with like a chair. They beat his ass before the match. And then Shane did some Shane McMahon shit, right? Only problem I had with this match is that like all of a sudden, this last run, Shane McMahon is considered this like legitimate wrestler. You know what I mean? Like I remember in like 1995 or 1997, whatever the fuck it was, he was getting his ass kicked by X-Pac. He was like running scared from X-Pac, right? Like if X-Pac came back now, Shane would be presented as like levels above X-Pac. You know what I mean? Shane McMahon is awesome though. He's someone that he's awesome in the ring. That's it. Like otherwise, like he doesn't really add anything, But in the ring, he's badass because in the ring, Shane McMahon does things that impress me, and there are things that he does not need to do. You know what I mean? Like Shane McMahon being thrown off the top of the cage like he was is something that a billionaire's son never has to do. But he does it anyways, motherfucks. Maybe for that money, who knows? But the point is he does it anyway. He doesn't have to do that. He could be like, put me in a match against Dolph Ziggler, and then Dolph Ziggler beats me up. Whatever, right? He doesn't have to be like, put me in a match with Braun Strowman where they throw me off the cage. So that was a good spot. Shane McMahon's cool for that. The match was much more enjoyable. Another interesting and innovative spot, motherfucks, was when Braun Strowman grabbed Shane through the cage. Like Shane was climbing down on the other side, and he grabbed him. Then he tore up like one of the cage walls, I guess if you will. With one hand, he ripped out the fencing basically of the cage, and then pulled threw Shane back into the ring through it. That was badass. It was innovative. I've never seen it done before, as far as I can remember. So that's pretty cool, motherfucks. And then next up, we had easily match of the night. Okay, Bad Bunny and Damien Priest versus Miz and Morrison. So this match blew my mind because I expected this match to be, I expected Bad Bunny to start the match. I expected the beginning of the match to be exactly the same, where Miz pretty much says hey, Bad Bunny, I want you, I don't want Damien Priest. And then they beat up Bad Bunny a little bit. Bad Bunny does some moves, Then he tags Damien Priest. The match goes on. Eventually, what happens is Damien Priest counters Morrison or something, right, and it throws him outside. He hits the Reckoning or whatever the fuck it's called, the little crossroads shit that he does. And then with some help from Bad Bunny, tags in Bad Bunny who does a splash, and Bad Bunny gets the pin. That's not what happened, motherfuckers. What happened was Bad Bunny was the highlight of this match. He did better than everyone else. His entrance was cool because he came in a big ass truck, riding it like a surfboard almost, right? And then in the match itself, this guy did things that he didn't need to do. Again, he's a rich guy and he's successful on his own merits, but he doesn't have to do this. He doesn't have to have a competitive match. But clearly he's a fan, and clearly he understands the importance, motherfucks, of WrestleMania. So he's I'm gonna do my best, right? He was a guy that literally was trying his best. Up until Pat McAfee, I had never seen celebrity guests actually do well. The best one was Maria Menounos that one time at WrestleMania, where she kind of held her own, But if you look at people like Snooki and things like that, it's they don't even try. They're not athletic, right? Bad Bunny, strangely enough, was very athletic. He was badass. He was doing suplexes, cross bodies, double T moves. He even did a fucking Canadian destroyer on the outside, which of course means AEW should sign him immediately and make him world champion, motherfucks. So there you have it. The match was great. Obviously, Bad Bunny and Damien Priest won. That was the only negative of this match, is that obviously they were gonna win, right? Now this match, despite the fact that Bad Bunny was awesome, if it was Bad Bunny versus Miz and Bad Bunny won, it would be ridiculous, right? That would be stupid. So I'm really glad that this match became a tag team match. John Morrison and The Miz came out to hey, hey, hop, hop, right? First, all these bunnies came to the ring, right? So you think Bad Bunny's coming out, but it was actually Miz and Morrison, which I thought was awesome. Miz and Morrison are cool dudes. I like Miz and Morrison, you know? That's the problem with wrestling today, like I keep saying, right? You know, you have people like Seth Rollins and Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston. They're not cool at all. And people like Morrison and Miz are actually cool. Like, focus on them, motherfucks. And to be fair, they did. They focused on them. Obviously, Miz and Morrison were way higher up on the card this year than the New Day, as they should be, right? So, basically, the match was pretty great. Damien Priest is great, and I believe Damien Priest is perfect for this role. Like, there would be very few people who would be better suited to be the partner of Bad Bunny. It would be someone like him, maybe like if Baron Corbin was face. Everyone else, like if it was like someone like Braun Strowman, it'd be too exaggerated. It'd be like, oh, it's like a handicap match, basically, right? Like they wouldn't be the underdogs, you know, they'd be the favorites because they have Braun Strowman. You know, if it was like someone smaller, it'd be like, oh, that's a little bit, like if it was him and Rey Mysterio, for example, I'd be like, okay, that's kind of silly. Like they're like a super underdogs, right? But Damien Priest's size and abilities really complement that of a rookie, right? So it's like Damien Priest plus like a guy who's just starting out. Like Damien Priest and Dominic Mysterio could feasibly beat like you know, Miz and Morrison, right? That's kind of like how this match was played out. It was great. The match was fantastic. Bad Bunny was impressive. Bad Bunny was a better performer tonight than like all the women. He was more entertaining than fucking Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston, and honestly, than Hamas. And yeah, this was a great match. This was a fantastic match. Then we had Bianca Belair versus Sasha Banks, and what was an excellent match. However, I will say this. There was a point in the match where Bianca Belair does a double power bomb on Sasha Banks. And at a certain point, Sasha Banks is meant to kick out of power bomb 2 because it transitions immediately into a pin, and she doesn't. The referee picks up on this, so he doesn't count to 3, right? But I saw it plain as day. Sasha Banks didn't kick out on time. So that was a big botch. That is an unforgivable botch. There was also a point where Sasha Banks, the announcers were like, she's going for the Meteora, and she clearly was. But we didn't see what Bianca Belair was doing. So I believe that Bianca Belair thought that she was going to go for a splash, positioned herself to take a splash, forcing Sasha Banks midair to switch from Meteora to Frog Splash. Luckily, she uses both moves, so it's not this like, holy shit, how could she do this to the Sasha situation? But it looked shitty. It looked botched, right? Now, another thing. This powerbomb spot really, really took me out of the match. I'm like, this is stupid. This is like clearly she had her pin, you know? The match beyond that was excellent. I thought it was an excellent match, you know? It was entertaining. There was a story that was told. Bianca Belair's emotions really sold the moment. So did Sasha's, but Bianca Belair, she almost cried in the beginning of the match. Like, she was really, really excited to be there and really excited to be in what they're billing as the main event of WrestleMania, which obviously it's not the main event, right? But whatever. Like, WWE thinks it is, so that's what matters. So she really was excited for this, you know? And because WrestleMania is 2 nights, it's now possible to have women be in like this main event, basically. And it's not this like huge slight, right? I mean, I still think it is because I think Bobby Lashley deserved it. You know, and it's really weird that you start the night off with like a weather delay and then you put on the most important match first. Where it's like, I literally debated just turning it off after this match. I'm like, I'll turn this off and one of my friends will text me when Bad Bunny's on and I'll be back for that. I don't give a shit about anything else. You know? But I figured I'll stick through it. It's WrestleMania, right? So this match was excellent. It was way better, for example, than the other WrestleMania women's main event with Becky Lynch and Ronda Rousey and Charlotte. It was way better than that, like way better, right? So it was pretty good. I enjoyed it. The finish of the match was Bianca Belair did the hair whip on Sasha, and like they pressed a button to create this like sound effect, and then Sasha Banks like had this like bruise on her. Maybe it was real, I don't know. But like, unless the hair is made of whip, you know what I'm saying? If it's made of leather, then yeah. But it looked fake to me. Then she hits the KOD, and that's it, right? Good way to end the first night. Not necessarily a good way to end the show, but a good way to end the first night because it's a positive note. It's a new champion, and they've hit the woke social justice quota of having women finish. You know, so I get it, right? Overall, the show in design, I give it like a 4 out of 10, you know? Like, the design of the show wasn't good, the pacing wasn't that great, and the decisions weren't fantastic. The match quality was solid. Like, none of the matches, except for maybe the women's tag match, were shit matches, you know what I'm saying? They were solid matches, some of which were WrestleMania worthy matches, like the main event, and to a lesser extent, the world title match, and of course, the Bad Bunny match, right? Now, the problems with this WrestleMania, motherfucks, because we have to talk about that, the main problem here is the lack of star power, right? The lack of big-time feel, you know? There was no big-time feel. There was nothing to look forward to. One thing that Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt have done correctly in this feud is they've had minimal interaction with each other. So that creates build-up, right? Randy Orton has been dealing mostly with Alexa Bliss. And now he has to answer to Bray Wyatt. But Lashley and Drew have been dealing with each other every Monday for the last 7 weeks. And despite the fact that they've been dealing with each other for 7 weeks, they haven't really furthered any storyline. So it's really weird. It doesn't feel like a big deal. It feels like I saw this on Monday. You know? I don't know why. It just does, motherfucks. Because they keep attacking each other. They keep wrestling. You know? So whatever. It is what it is, right? Bad Bunny, that felt like a big deal. That felt like a WrestleMania match. You know? Primarily because there's a what's it called? A celebrity there, right? And not because he's a celebrity, but because there actually was a storyline. Now, was this the best storyline ever written? Absolutely not, motherfucks. It was, in my opinion, a below average storyline, but a storyline nonetheless. The rest of these matches didn't really have storylines. They're just like, I'm not doing anything, you're not doing anything, let's wrestle at WrestleMania. You know? Especially like things like Omos and AJ versus the New Day that had like zero storyline. There was no build-up. Like, it's just New Day shaking their ass, coming out shaking their ass and being like, you guys aren't a real team, ha ha ha, and then they get their ass whooped by Omos. How does it feel, Kofi? How does it feel, you cuck, to get destroyed by a better wrestler? You know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying, right? There was no build-up to most of these matches, and as a result of that and the fact that we see these fucks every week on Raw competing likely with each other, like we saw AJ Styles wrestle Xavier Woods and Kofi Kingston for the last 3-4 weeks. So what would I want to watch WrestleMania? To see Omos do what I know he's going to do to them? That wasn't very compelling, motherfucks. But even so, it was what it was, and it wasn't garbage. But the point is, in order for wrestling to feel big, you have to make the matches feel big. Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks didn't feel as big as Bad Bunny and Damien Priest versus Miz and Morrison, which I believe, honestly, if you're not going to give this respect to Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre, then Bad Bunny should have closed the show. I'm not even fucking around, motherfucks. Bad Bunny should be a main eventer. You know what I'm saying? Bad Bunny should have one main event to his name, because that's the match that I think would draw the most interest. Like, if this WrestleMania was marketed correctly, I think most people would tune in for that match. I don't think they tune in for Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair, which is predictable and boring, right? They're going to tune in to see something cool. You know? So that being said, I will admit, this WrestleMania exceeded my expectations. I thought it was going to be complete garbage, and it was not complete garbage. It actually was quite enjoyable. But I will tell you this, motherfucks. Afterwards, I told my girlfriend, I'm like, because she watched like the last match and a half with me, and I'm like, look, I'm going to show you a wrestling match, and I'm going to ask you which one's better. The women's match that we just saw, because she's all like, yeah, women, go ahead, you know? And I'm like, that one or the one that I'm going to show you? So I show her Hulk Hogan versus The Rock, WrestleMania 18, right? And before the match starts, she was like, babe, do you, did anyone cheer for Hulk Hogan? Because I explained to her that Hulk Hogan was the bad guy in this feud, right? And The Rock was the good guy. So she was like, oh, did anyone cheer for him? And I also explained to her how big of a deal Hulk Hogan is. So she intuitively expected people to cheer for Hulk Hogan, but she didn't understand that everyone would cheer for Hogan and boo The Rock. No one understood that, right? And when she saw it, she was like, wow, that's pretty crazy, right? Now, she didn't appreciate it the way that I would, right? Or the way that a wrestling fan would, because she's not a wrestling fan. But the point was, she understood that even though the Rock and Hogan match was just a bunch of clotheslines and chops, and then a rock bottom, a leg drop, a people's elbow, and a rock bottom, didn't matter, motherfucks. It was more entertaining than Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks, because it meant something, right? Fans were engaged. It actually meant something. And here we are, cuck motherfucks. Here we are. After that, I showed her Cena versus The Rock. Same general idea. You know, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter even if the match is good. Rock and Hogan is a horrible match from like a entertainment standpoint. You know, just watching the actual match. Like if you turn off the crowd, like if that match happened this WrestleMania, it'd be garbage. You know, it'd be like a shit match because there would be no excitement because it'd be like in a crowd of 20 people, and no one would care. But in the context of what it was, right, in the live audience, the fact that Hulk Hogan is the greatest wrestler to ever live, and The Rock was positioned to be the next Hulk Hogan, even though he was going to leave for Hollywood, that's what made it interesting. You see what I'm saying? It was made good for that reason. It wasn't made good for any other reason. So there you go. It's not about the wrestling, it's about promoting it. So because this WrestleMania hasn't been well promoted, just like last WrestleMania, and then once again, motherfuckers, I can forgive it because of COVID, but next year I expect something better. I expect actual big matches. For the last few WrestleManias, like not counting this one has like no big matches, right? Maybe Edge. The last several Manias have had several big matches. They've had several situations with like Brock Lesnar or Goldberg or now Edge, I guess. People coming back like legends like John Cena versus The Rock. All these big time matches. This year, you can argue that Edge isn't a big time match, but it's not as big time as it was last WrestleMania when he was wrestling Orton in his first match in 10 years. So that being said, I look forward to tonight, but there's more filler than there is substance. This WrestleMania could have been one night if they did something like take out the women's gauntlet match, take out the Big E match, put the AJ Styles and Hamas match on Monday Night Raw. You know what I mean? If they did some shuffling around, this didn't have to be a two-night WrestleMania. And that's another reason why the Bianca Bel-Air Sasha Banks match doesn't feel like a main event. Because it's only a main event if you add things like the Nigerian drum circle match, so you force yourself to have a two-night show. This match would never go ahead of Edge, right? That's never gonna happen, motherfuckers. And that's kind of the implication. To be the main event, it means you are the most important match of WrestleMania. And this is not the most important match of WrestleMania. This is not even the second most important match of WrestleMania. But it's the match that goes second to last, I guess you could say. Because we have to give it some credit, right? But whatever, it is what it is. The point is, this event exceeded my expectations. I thoroughly enjoyed it. But that's about it, motherfuckers. I look forward to tonight, primarily for one match. The rest of them are whatever. I don't really give a shit about any of them, to be honest. Right? Like, I couldn't give a fuck about the women's tag match. I don't give a shit about Asuka Rhea Ripley. I don't give a damn about the Nigerian drum circle match. Like, that's going to be one of the more fun ones, but I don't give a shit, And then we also have a bunch of other crap, obviously, right? Like, Fiend versus Orton. But whatever. I'm looking forward to it because the first night was watchable, right? I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the first night, I'll be honest. So there you go, motherfuckers. Talk to you later, bitch boys.